Hello and welcome back to Eve Echoes, where we're going to be talking about everything to do with the balance changes, my final thoughts on everything after doing all the testing and stuff. I'm sorry that it took me so long to get this video out there. I've had a fever the past couple of days and my brain just wasn't ready to be able to actually put a sentence together, let alone talk about an entire video. So it's been a couple of days since I've been out of it and I haven't really been able to do anything. But now I'm much better. I can actually talk about some of the issues and some of the good things as well. There's not all shit. There are some good things in there, but it's mostly shit. But it's not all shit. There's a bonus. Fuck off calling me. So firstly, let's go over the tier 10 additions, those big boy ships that are across the board. Some of them are pretty mental. Some of them are just wastes of space. It did piss me off a little bit that they basically just nerfed the Dominix 1 to be able to fit in a Dominix 2 in tier 10. That just made no sense to me. They made the Dominix 2 the Dominix from before and then nerfed the first Dominix. That kind of pissed me off a little bit. That's just lazy development. They could have done something different with that. Perhaps it could be they're getting ready to bring in the actual faction drones. Maybe there could be other reasons why they've done this. Who knows, because they don't fucking tell us anything. The T10 strikers are pretty lackluster marauders. If you know what marauders are in EO, then you'll understand what I mean. That kind of bastion module that they have kind of attached to the ship, kind of, where I am personally guessing that they actually just implemented these ships for attacking stations, which is kind of pointless. Yes, they have range. No, they can't move. If they get warped on or jumped on by an enemy fleet while you're attacking a station, they're just going to get shit on. So it's 100% a better alternative to just use bomber 2s. They added a high slot to it. You need far less ships to be able to max the DPS on the station. You can move around a lot. You can get in and out. You can move it to different points of the battlefield. You're basically immune to getting jumped on using bombers, and you can consistently maintain that DPS on the station 100% of the time. You don't need battleships to maintain damage on a station. It makes zero fucking sense. And then if they're using those strikers, for example, to attack dreadnoughts when they finally release, that's even gonna be pointless as well, because when they're using striker mode, they're just sitting ducks and they're just sitting there like, hey, and then just get one shot by a dreadnought no matter how far out they are, unless you're rat packing that dreadnought and you've got loads of ships at the front sitting there. I mean, if the dreadnought's smart, he knows he's gonna die, he's just gonna start popping strikers out in there because they're just not moving and their signature bloom is massive when using the module. So I just don't know. Like, for me, the strikers are kind of pointless. The Apocalypse Striker is pretty decent as a siege ship, but again, just use bomber 2s. The Megathron Striker and the Raven Striker are dog shit. Like, I hated both of them. The Maelstrom Striker is okay, but then there's no point in having that module. I would rather just have the standard Maelstrom than having the Maelstrom Striker. The Maelstrom Striker is kind of pointless because cannons are dog shit with that striker mode. So if we had the standard Maelstrom and you can stick ACs on there, you can have a double large repper and you could be repping, it would be such a great ship. But instead of the Maelstrom, they have the Maelstrom Striker, which is absolutely terrible. Now let's talk about the armor and the shield, the comparison between the two, what it's like now, how it's been with those T10s out of the way. I don't like those T10 strikers, man. They can just like, they should have just deleted that shit and just found out something else to do. They need to add, there's something that needs to be done with those strikers for them to even be viable. In most situations, there's other variants of ships and other smaller ships that are better at doing that job and not getting shit on by fleets. Small armor is in a massively good place right now. So much better, so much better. It is in the perfect place with the armor versus shield on the small. Now, the medium armor, in my opinion, has been buffed too much. You're basically healing the same HP a second as a medium shield, but for far less capacitor. Granted, it's more power grid, but you can work around that. Medium armor is in a good place, but I think it actually needs to be brought back a little bit. They over-tuned it just a little bit, but that's my personal opinion. I'm sure some of you guys will have a different opinion, so please let me know down below. If you want to say, Sovereign, you're an idiot, what are you talking about? Medium armor's still shit. Well, the numbers say different, boys. What can I say? Now, the large armor is definitely in a better place compared to large shield, but it's still not quite there. It needs less of a cycle time for it to be viable. Drop it a couple of seconds, or allow the armor repper to rep a little bit more to be on a sort of level with the large shield boosters. If they even want it to be on a level, if they want it to be completely balanced between the two. I don't even know if they want that, because it went for so long with them saying that it was okay when it wasn't, but there is that. So with the armor and the shield out of the way, we're going to move on to the PG requirements for certain modules and certain ships that are on there now. So the Ashimus require a hell of a lot more SP to be able to run the same fit that I had before. It needs to have 555s in at least engineering or in the shield operation. Sometimes, depending on what you want to fit on there, you need 555 in both. That adds quite a lot of SP to the actual ship itself, especially when you're lower SP amounts. Maybe you're a lower tier. So getting that shield fit on there is still quite difficult. Now, the reason why you'd still go shield over armor, even though medium is now much nicer, you cannot upsize the large armor repper on the Ashimu. That is bloody impossible, and it's still worse than a large shield booster. So you still need to have that large shield booster on there. You still need to be shield fit, and it's only got 4 low slots. So those 4 low slots are basically shat on. It's impossible to do armor on there, so you still want to go shield on the Ashimu. You definitely need to downgrade some of the modules to be able to fit the Ashimu, for example, with the new PG requirements. So you need to down meta the MWD would be a good choice. There are other things you can do. If you want to keep that MWD, you can do other things. You can put more power grid rigs on there, so you can have 3 power grid rigs and you can still do all the stuff and etc. But they're quite costly. So there are some changes you need for the Ashimu fit in particular. There's a lot of ships that are with their PG requirements cannot do the same as they did before, but if I was going to list them off, this video would be 45 minutes long, and none of us want that. None of us want to hear me go on for 45 minutes. Now, some of the new additions to T10, other than the strikers, you're looking at the Abaddon, which is an absolute monster beast of a ship. It is absolutely beautiful. Tank's great. Damage is great. Everything about the Abaddon is beautiful. Maybe too beautiful. Again, another ship that I think is slightly overtuned. Speaking of overtuning, we are looking at those interceptors when you have a slasher interceptor that is now more powerful than a Dramiel, with interceptors doing the DPS of faction cruisers quite easily, with the much lower skill requirement, with a much smaller signature radius and the immunity to bubbles. Who in the Christ hell on earth actually asked for interceptors to be buffed? It makes 0 sense to me. The Executioner Interceptor is absolutely beautiful. The Slasher Interceptor is absolutely beautiful. Now, I still hate rails. I'll still never fly the H on Interceptor because I hate rails. Personally, I hate rails. They might be good. People might enjoy them, but I think they're shit. The tracking is shit. You have to slow down and maintain a certain speed to be able to hit anything, especially in a Daredevil. For me, it's just shit. Like, the rails just need to be looked at even more. Those balances need to be made where the tracking needs to be made better. I mean, I feel like the Interceptor damage buff that they gave them at T10 was just ridiculous. But, I mean, I'm not complaining. If I'm going to be getting back into the game, then I'm going to be getting back into the game. And I'm going to be getting back into my Interceptors, my babies. Now, I really didn't want to talk about destroyers, but destroyers, I guess I need to like cover them a little bit. They've been shit on. They're terrible now, even worse than before. I don't even know how that's possible when all we wanted was better destroyers. There's no point in using the destroyer interdictors. They removed the only destroyers that could have been seen as pretty decent with the covert ops and just made a generic copy in T10. But you can bubble better, guys. There's a massive bonus there. You can make a bigger bubble, better bubble, longer lasting bubble for 455 times the cost. But you can do it. Yay. Speaking of interdictors, heavy dictors have just been like, I don't know what they did to those heavy interdictors. They're just terrible. They've just gone down the toilet and I miss it. I don't know. I was speaking to Nina quite a lot about all of these different topics and these different things because I didn't get to try out everything. And Nina is just like super into getting into every single detail of every single thing that's been changed and testing every single thing out. I didn't have the time. I was half the time stuck in a bed dying during that entire test. So I only got to test out the stuff that I personally really like. So I get to test a lot of the other things for you. That's why you have Nina here to save our ass. And we both feel that the general design choices of T10 and the ships, just making slightly better ships for a massively higher cost, is just like, I don't know, it just feels like laziness. It just feels like they just chucked that shit in there because they didn't have enough time. Like they gave, Why does it always feel like they haven't got enough time to do something? Why does it never feel like, oh, they've put some real effort into this, just needs a little bit more time, a little more tweaking? Why does it always feel like they have been forced into a speed build that no one, like, I don't know. Anyway, moving on from that. The command ships are pretty damn tasty. They can get to stupidly good levels, especially if you min-max out the ship and you're actually putting all of the skills into the command modules, but they can come out with some really good fits, really powerful fits, and they're really good to complement fleets, like really good. Like they definitely did a good job with those command ships. I have no issues with that. It's fantastic. So let's move on to the sort of capacitor changes and how they made it seem like the capacitors were going to shit on everything and how we were going to have a massive problem with capacitors. Now, I mean, when I first read all of this stuff, I really thought that the cap usage of lasers not being dropped and the cap rising for everything else was going to cause a massive problem, but it really didn't do anything. Like, it's literally such a minuscule change that it doesn't even matter, that it didn't even need to be implemented because it didn't do anything. There's literally no issue. You might have lost 5 seconds, if that, off of your capacitors. So I don't know, that was kind of a useless change. Now with the group boosters, everyone and their mum knew that they were not supposed to be fitted. You're not supposed to fit large shield boosters or large armor group reppers if you're going to be doing that. I don't know why you'd do that over the shield boosters, but each to their own. They were never meant to fit to interceptor fleets. They were never meant to fit to frigates and destroyers. They were never meant to do that. You were never meant to be able to rep as a 10-man fleet as much as a dreadnought would be able to rep. Like, it's just, you just shouldn't have even existed. But it did. And it got changed, and now it can't be fit onto certain things with a new PG requirement, which is another good change. I mean, it opens up and it stops making certain ships more powerful than others, and stops allowing for fleets to be able to completely tank damage of an entire fleet of 40 people with 10 frigates. Now remember guys, if I do miss anything from the test, anything that is glaring that you decided was shit or was really good that I'm missing out, please let me know down in the comments, because we've only got one final thing to go over for myself personally that I believe is good or bad, and this is just bad. This last one is just the worst change that they've had so far. The HP increase and the resistance increase on the rats have made ratting twice to 3 times as long, especially when you're not flying God mode ships. They said that these changes were made to up the damage, to speed up the clear times, but then they upped the HP and the resistance of the rats, so now the rats are even slower to kill, so you're not making as much money, and it just feels like they are actually making it harder, so you have to spend money to be able to get the ISK and the Plex and the blah blah blah. But that might just be my conspiracy theory holding ass, just deciding that in my brain it's just like, well, that's what it feels like, so that's what it must be. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it is. Who knows? Like, ships were finding it hard to break the tank of elite faction ships. Like, it was very difficult for certain people to do that. There's a lot of complaints about that. If they wanted to speed it up, they needed to drop the stats, not heighten the stats. It already took 2 hours to complete a storyline when most people who are playing a mobile game don't have 2 hours to sit there, unlike myself, the holy British neckbeard, where I can sit there for 10 hours a day just grinding out storylines to make money. Most people can't do that. And I know there's some of you out there who are just going to be like, oh, well, fuck them. Who cares? Casuals, dirty casuals. Dirty casuals are the ones that basically keep the game running. If you can't keep most of them happy, you've got no game. You've got 4 people in the system because they want to be hardcore. Like, it makes no sense. I'm a hardcore player. I like playing hardcore games. I like full loot systems, and I like things taking a long time to be able to complete. But I also like my universe to be full of people, not to be empty and only full of bitter people who have no one left to fight, and that's it. You need the casual players. You need to have something that helps the casual players out. And I feel the changes to the rats have now just fucked the casual players a little bit more. So we might be seeing another drop of players after they make those changes. Now, all of these changes are subject to change. I should have said that at the beginning, but I didn't. Maybe I wanted to be dramatic. Who knows? No, but seriously, I didn't say that at the beginning, but all things are subject to change depending on the feedback. I did the air quotes when I said feedback. More likely, server stats. That will be the ones that they like maintain. If they maintain a certain change or they change a change, will be based on the server stats, not the feedback. I still feel like they don't listen to feedback, otherwise there'll be a lot better changes and a lot more changes. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Remember, leave a comment down below if there's anything I missed, any really shit stuff that I missed. Yes, there's a lot of stuff in there. The command modules are quite OP, and there are certain changes throughout the game that I didn't mention, but they're not as important as some of the stuff that I did mention today. Remember to like and sub if you haven't already. This is your one-stop shop to evacuate mobile games and RPGs. I want to say a huge thank you to all my patrons. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to continue doing what I'm doing. If you'd like to find out how to become a patron and how to get early access to my content, please look down in the description. Fly safe and avoid local chat scams.